y'all? It's Young Rick with Westside Level. I'm glad to see you motherfuckers back. And today we're getting into how to level our keyboard instruments. So before we get started, let's just give a listen back to what we did to our drums. So this is how our drums sound. So as I mentioned in the lesson before, is now that we have our drums leveled, the rest of the balance will become hella easy to put together. And I'll demonstrate that by bringing in our first instrument, keyboard instrument, which is going to go ahead and be a chord progression. So let's hear how that sounds and then get into some processing. Here's our first keyboard instrument. Perfect. It's sounding great to me. So what I want to do first to this chord progression is I want to go ahead and high pass all of that low information out, so we can leave that for the kick and the bass. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do with our filter section right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just engage the split button because I know I'm going to have to do some EQ after. All right, and with our high pass filter, I cut all the way up to around a little under 120, and that's because I don't want to cut too much of that low end information out of our chord progression, because there's a lot of information and frequencies when it comes to keyboard instruments that do live in that bass range. So we do want to preserve as much as we can. But as far as the next step with this chord progression, we're going to go ahead and add some compression to it. Now, when it comes to compressing our keyboard instruments, especially chord progressions, which what makes compressors sound really good on pianos and any type of keyboard instruments is a fast attack. So notice how when I set my attack fast and I set my threat ratio and I start to bring down that threshold, how the character of the pianos just starts to come out when we start to get some gain reduction. So I'm going to go ahead and set a fast attack, set my ratio, and then we're going to dial in that threshold. Let's do that. All right, and as you can see, that just giving our piano or our keyboard instrument that compression gave it so much more clarity. But we still haven't set a release time. So when it comes to the release time for keyboard instruments, they can be a slightly slower than our drum instruments because they don't drive the groove of the song as much. Still, there is such a thing as instruments being out of groove, so don't just think you could just set a super slow release. But let's go ahead and fish this around with that release and get as much as we can out, but still keep it groovy. All right, let's get into it. Perfect. So I chose around 20 milliseconds for our release because yes, it's not as fast as our 15 milliseconds that we set for a lot of our drums, but what it does is it gives a lot of weight to our piano sound, our keyboard sound. So now we have a lot to work with when it comes to EQ. All right, so because we have finished our compression and we like where we are with compression, let's get into EQing our instrument. So, like how I mentioned before, a lot of the keyboard instrument sound is in that low mid frequency bass type range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus my attention on this blue area, and then I'm going to go ahead and go fishing from 1K up to see if we can find a good tone to again bring back the dynamics in our keyboard. Let's get into it. All right, so ironically enough, around that 1K area is where the keyboards really started to whistle at me. So that's where I'm gonna go ahead and keep our that's where I'm gonna go ahead and keep our EQ at. All right, so this is before our boost at 1K. All right, and this is our boost after 1K. This is how our piano sounds after our 1K boost. All right, so now and I'm loving the way that sounds. So now that we got our instrument processed, our chord progression processed the way we want, let's pick a final level for it. And the way I'm thinking about the instrument is I definitely want it sitting under all of our drums. So if you remember from our last lesson, our lowest drum was our percussion. Yeah, if you remember from the last lesson, our percussion was sitting at around 24 decibels. So that's what we're going to shoot for with our instruments. That's basically kind of going to be our limiter number for our instruments. We don't want any of our instruments to go above 24 decibels because that's going to be higher than our percussion instrument. So with that being said, I want our chord progression to be our loudest instrument. So I'm going to set it directly at 24 decibels. And that's going to be our master level for our chord progression. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, perfect. Let's move on to our next element, which is going to go ahead and be, I believe, a lead. So let's hear how this sounds. Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually a bass sound. All right, so with this bass instrument, we're definitely going to want to keep it, we're definitely going to want to add some compression. But before we do that, let's go ahead and low pass some of that high end information out of the bass, our synth bass sound. That way we can leave that for the keyboards, the hi-hats, the percussions, anything that's in the mix. So let's go ahead and do that with this filter section. All right, so I did our high pass and I did it around 5K because yes, it changed our sound slightly, but it didn't get rid of that core sound of our bass, which is our low tone sound. It might have gotten rid of a little bit of those upper harmonics, but like I said, in the mix, that's going to be filled up with the rest of the instrumentation. So let's go ahead and get into compression. I'm going to go ahead and give it a fast attack, and because it's a bass sound, and then we're going to go ahead and dial in this ratio and threshold. Let's do that. Bass instantly gets fatter. So let's go ahead and start setting our release. This is a bass sound, so we're gonna keep a fast release, keep it groovy. Perfect. I'm liking the way it sounds when the release is sitting at 15 milliseconds. So this is before our compression. This is after our compression on the bass. All right, and with this bass, this is going to be a low mid frequency element. So we're going to look at this. We're just going to go around fishing from 300 and up to 800 and see what fattens up our bass. So let's go ahead and start doing that with the EQ. And remember, we're going to engage the split button. The split button is so the EQ comes after the compression. I'm gonna raise this Q knob to fatten up fatten up the shape of our bell boost. It could either be a very thin, narrow boost or a wide, fat boost. So I'm gonna fatten it up with this bell knob. Perfect. I'm loving the way that sounds. So let's go ahead and give it a quick before and after. This is before our EQ. This is after our EQ. Alright, so let's go ahead and pick a master level for our bass sound, our synth bass sound. Now, I definitely want this to have some headroom above our chord progression. So this is going to be the one instrument that we could put above our to some of the same level as our drums. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot for 21 decibels for our bass sound. That way it can really stand out and cut through the mix, but it's still not bigger than our 808 or our kick. So let's go ahead and do that. Perfect. So the bass is sounding big, the chord progression is sounding big. Let's go ahead and add our last instrument. Alright, so this is a lead sound. It's really meant to accentuate like the melody the melody of our beat. So we don't need it to really be in front of everything. So we're not really going to give it compression, but we are going to start off with a high pass filter so we can cut out all of that low information. So let's do that. All right, now that we cut out all of our low end information, let's go ahead and pick a level for our lead sound. We're not going to do too much to it. Let's go ahead and we had our chord progression sitting at 24 decibels. So let's pick 27 decibels, 3 decibels under our chord progression. All right, I was bullshitting for a second. My bad. So let's go ahead and give a listen to how everything sounded before. Now that we channel strips, so I'm gonna go ahead and mute all our channel strips. This is how everything sounds before. Okay, now this is how everything sounds with all of our leveling. Perfect. So a lot more better. Everything is clear. Everything is sitting in its own space. And we have a very big dynamic mix. So now we can, that our mix is very good, big, and dynamic, we can start getting into some mix bus processing. So that's the lesson for today. Like always, give me a like. Hit me in the comment sections if you got a question. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all niggas be smooth. My name is Rick. I'm out. West Side Level. Y'all be smooth. Gone.